Everybody stop right now!
Internal affairs. Step aside.
Rain fell steadily over the nearly empty streets of Atlanta, turning the pavement into a mirror of red brake lights, blue street signs, and distant headlights. It was a little after midnight when Maya Carter drove her father's old pickup along a familiar road. She had driven that truck for years. It wasn't beautiful. The paint had faded in places. One side of the bed carried a few dents, and the steering wheel had a small crack across the leather. But to Maya, it was more than a vehicle. Her father had used it for 20 years. And after he passed away, keeping the truck was one of the few ways she felt she could keep a piece of him close. She was thinking about him when blue and red lights suddenly filled her rearview mirror. Maya immediately slowed down. She pulled onto the shoulder, turned off the radio, and placed both hands where they could be seen. 2 officers approached. Sergeant Daniel Brooks came to the driver's window first. He was a veteran officer with years of experience on the streets. Behind him walked Officer Tyler Reed, a younger officer who looked serious but uncertain. License and registration, Brooks said. Maya handed them over. Is there a problem? Officer Brooks studied her through the window. You were driving suspiciously. Maya looked genuinely confused. I've been driving the speed limit. Did I commit a traffic violation? Brooks didn't answer directly. Step out of the vehicle. Maya took a slow breath. She knew enough about police encounters to understand that arguing emotionally would not help her. She opened the door and stepped onto the wet pavement. I'm willing to cooperate, she said calmly. But I would like to know why I'm being stopped. Brooks looked at Reed, checked the truck. Reed walked toward the rear. Maya followed him with her eyes. Something about his movement bothered her. He wasn't checking the license plate. He wasn't looking at the tires. He walked directly toward an old metal toolbox mounted behind the cab. Officer Maya said, "What are you looking for?" Reed didn't answer. Brooks stepped between them. Ma'am, we have reason to believe there may be illegal cargo in your vehicle. Maya's expression hardened. I don't have any illegal cargo. Then you shouldn't have anything to worry about. It was the kind of sentence Maya had heard before, not necessarily from police, but from people who believed authority alone was enough to end a conversation. She looked directly at Brooks. I'm not refusing to cooperate with a lawful investigation. I'm simply asking that everything be documented properly. For a moment, Brooks seemed surprised by her response. Then his expression became colder. You watched too many courtroom dramas. Maya gave a faint smile. My father taught me something better than courtroom dramas. He taught me that when you're telling the truth, you don't have to be afraid of questions. Behind them, Reed opened the toolbox. The camera angle of the patrol vehicle captured the scene from a distance. Maya couldn't see what Reed was doing, but the audience could. Reed moved an old tool case aside, reached beneath it, and quietly placed a sealed package into a compartment where Maya had never stored anything. He closed the compartment. Then he stood up. Sergeant. He called. Brooks walked toward him. Maya remained beside the truck, rain collecting on her hair and shoulders. What did you find? Brooks held up the package. Something you didn't mention. Maya stared at it. I've never seen that before. You expect me to believe that? Yes, Maya replied. Because it's the truth. Brooks ordered Reed to handcuff her. Maya did not fight. She did not scream. She simply looked toward the patrol car's camera. Then she looked back at Reed. For just a second, their eyes met. Reed looked away. Maya noticed. And that tiny movement told her something the officers didn't realize. She had noticed one of them was already afraid of what this night might become. Maya sat quietly in the back of the patrol car, her hands secured behind her. Rain tapped against the windows as the city passed in blurred streaks of red and white. She could have shouted. She could have demanded answers. She could have allowed fear to take control. Instead, she took a slow breath. She had learned something from her father that she carried into every difficult situation. When people are trying to make you lose your composure, protecting your composure can be the first form of strength. In the front seat, Sergeant Brooks spoke into the radio. Female suspect in custody. Suspected possession of illegal cargo. Maya listened carefully. The words bothered her, not because she was afraid of the charge, but because the story being told over the radio was already different from what had happened on the road. She had not given permission to search her truck. She had not opened the toolbox, and she had never seen the package before the officers displayed it. Officer Reed sat beside Brooks, staring through the windshield. He hadn't said a word since the arrest. Brooks finally noticed. You going to be quiet all night? Reed swallowed, just thinking. Don't think too much, just remember what happened. Reed looked at him. I remember. Brooks lowered his voice. Good. At the precinct, Maya was escorted through a set of security doors. The building was busy despite the late hour. Dispatchers answered phones, officers moved between rooms, and computers glowed beneath fluorescent lights. Brooks placed the package on the booking counter. Suspected illegal cargo recovered from the suspect's vehicle. Maya looked at the desk officer. Please document that I dispute that statement. Brooks sighed. Here we go again. Maya didn't raise her voice. I am not asking for special treatment. I'm asking for an accurate record. The desk officer hesitated before typing. Maya continued. Please also document that I did not consent to the search. Brooks leaned against the counter. You understand that making accusations against officers doesn't make them true. Maya looked at him. And wearing a uniform doesn't make every statement true either. The room became quiet for a moment. Even the younger officers nearby seemed to notice the tension. There was an important difference between respecting law enforcement and blindly accepting everything an officer said. Maya understood the distinction. She also understood that most police officers entered the profession because they wanted to protect people, not because they wanted power over them. That was why what was happening bothered her so deeply. A badge was supposed to represent responsibility. A police report was supposed to preserve facts. And an arrest was supposed to be based on evidence, not a story created after the fact. The desk officer asked Maya for her occupation. Before she could answer, Brooks said, Leave that blank for now. Maya looked at him. Why, we'll verify it later. She nodded slowly. That's fine. But the way she said it made Reed glance toward her. She wasn't defeated. She was remembering every word, every timestamp, every person who had touched her property, every statement they had made. Maya understood that sometimes the most powerful response to injustice was not anger. It was documentation. A few minutes later, her phone was placed inside an evidence pouch. Maya immediately noticed the evidence number. She repeated it aloud. Please make sure that number is entered correctly. The desk officer looked at the label. It is. Maya nodded. Thank you. Brooks watched her carefully. You seem unusually calm for someone facing a serious charge. Maya met his eyes. Sergeant. Being afraid doesn't change facts. What facts? That my truck was searched after I was removed from it. That I did not consent that your officer handled the toolbox. And that the package wasn't there when I last opened it. Reed's eyes dropped toward the floor. Brooks noticed his expression tightened. Later, while Maya was taken toward the holding area, Brooks pulled Reed aside. Start the report. Reed opened the report system. Brooks dictated slowly. Vehicle appeared suspicious. Driver was nervous. Driver consented to search. Reed stopped typing. She didn't consent. Brooks stared at him. She doesn't need to hear you correct me. Reed looked toward the hallway where Maya had disappeared. Sergeant, that's not what happened. For the first time that night, Brooks's confidence disappeared. He stepped closer to Reed and spoke quietly. You've been an officer long enough to understand that reports matter. Reed nodded. They do. Then write the report. Reed looked at the blank. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. In somewhere behind the holding room door, Maya sat alone, unaware that the younger officer was beginning to understand that the choice in front of him was no longer about protecting a supervisor. It was about deciding what kind of police officer he was going to be. When the truth finally came into the light. By morning, the rain had stopped, but the streets outside the courthouse were still wet, reflecting the pale light of sunrise. Maya had spent the night in custody, but she had refused to let the experience break her spirit. Across town, Sergeant Brooks and Officer Reed entered the courthouse, believing they were bringing a straightforward case before a judge. Their report was ready. Their version of events was written down. The package was sealed. Everything looked official. But there was one thing they did not know. Maya Carter was not simply a woman who happened to be facing a criminal charge. She was the judge assigned to the courtroom where their case was scheduled to be reviewed. The courtroom slowly filled that morning. Attorneys whispered near their tables. Clerks organized files. The bailiff checked the doors. Brooks walked in first. Reed followed. Neither man looked particularly worried. Then the bailiff stood. Everyone, please rise. The courtroom became silent. Brooks automatically stood. Reed turned toward the side entrance. And then Maya walked in. She was no longer wearing the clothes from the night before. She wore a dark judicial robe and carried a folder against her chest. For several seconds, neither officer understood what they were seeing. Reed's face changed. First Sergeant Brooks stared at Maya. The confidence he had carried through the entire night seemed to disappear from his face. The clerk spoke clearly. All rise for the Honorable Judge Maya Carter. Took her place behind the bench. She looked directly at the two officers. There was no smile, no anger, no attempt to humiliate them. Just a calm expression that made the room feel even quiet. Brooks slowly sat down. Reed remained standing for another second before taking his seat. Maya opened the file. This matter concerns an arrest made last night. She paused before we discuss the allegations against the defendant. The court needs to establish whether the evidence was documented properly. Brooks shifted in his chair. Maya looked toward him. Sergeant Brooks, your report states that the defendant voluntarily consented to a search of her vehicle. Yes, Your Honor. Maya looked down at the report. And you are certain yes? She turned another page. Officer Reed, do you agree with that statement? The courtroom became completely silent. Reed looked at Brooks, then at Maya. Then at the report. His voice was quiet. No, Your Honor. Brooks immediately turned toward him. Maya did not react. Explain. Reed took a breath. She did not consent. A murmur moved through the courtroom. Brooks shook his head. That is not what happened. Maya raised one hand. Let him finish. Reed continued. The package was discovered after the toolbox was opened. The defendant did not open it herself. Maya looked at him carefully. Was the package visible before the toolbox was opened? No, Your Honor. And who opened the toolbox? Reed hesitated. I did. Maya nodded. Then she reached for another document. This evidence log was retrieved from the department system. This morning Brooks's expression changed. Maya placed it on the bench. The identification number on the package does not match the description in last night's report. Brooks looked toward the prosecutor. The prosecutor looked confused. Maya continued, and there is another problem. She held up a timestamp. The patrol vehicle's camera shows that the package was not removed from the vehicle. At the time stated in the report, the room was silent. Maya turned toward Reed. Officer, why did you write a report that did not accurately describe? Reed looked down. I was told what to write. Brooks closed his eyes for a moment. The truth was no longer something they could control. Maya could have used the moment to insult them. She could have reminded everyone that they had accused her and taken away her freedom. Instead, she said something that made the courtroom even quieter. Officers are given authority because society trusts them to use it responsibly. That trust is not a weapon. It is a responsibility. She looked toward Reed. And that responsibility belongs to every officer, regardless of rank. Then she looked toward Brooks. A badge should never make a person believe they are above the truth. Maya dismissed the fabricated evidence and ordered the matter referred for proper investigation. But before the officers left, she added one final thought. Justice is not about proving that one side is more powerful than the other. Justice is about making sure the truth has a place to stand. Reed lowered his head. Brooks remained silent, and Maya Carter walked out of the courtroom, knowing that what happened to her was bigger than one night, one arrest, or one police report. It was a reminder that black women deserve to be heard, respected, and treated with dignity. And that good police officers should never be afraid of accountability. Because accountability protects the badge as much as it protects the public. If this story made you think about what justice should really look like, tell me in the comments. Was Officer Reed right to finally tell the truth, or should he have spoken up the moment the false report was being written? And tell me where you're watching from. I read those comments and they help shape the stories I create next. Most importantly, tell me what you want to see next. Another courtroom twist, a police corruption story, or a powerful black woman exposing a hidden injustice. Because sometimes the strongest person in the room isn't the one with the badge. Sometimes it's the person who refuses to let the truth disappear.